At Willow's birthday party, she invited her ex-boyfriend Makoto. Despite my objections, everyone started cheering for them to play the kissing card game, where they had to pass a card using only their lips. The card slipped, and they ended up kissing each other. Makoto turned to me and asked, "It was an accident. My fault, Wang. You don't mind, right?" Instead of making a scene like I used to, ruining everyone's mood, I smiled, sat down, crossed my legs, and said, "No, it's fine, go ahead." From that day on, I stopped holding anything against Willow. Even when she told me she needed to go take care of Makoto, I smiled and advised her on how to look after a sick person, but she panicked, her eyes reddening as she grabbed my hand frantically. "George, aren't you even a little jealous?" Chapter 1. At Willow's birthday party, I stood there watching as she and her ex-boyfriend played a truth or dare punishment game. Egged on by the crowd, they held a transparent kiss board between their lips. The rule was to hold it in place using only their mouths for 10 seconds without dropping it. Just as their lips were about to touch the board, I couldn't take it anymore. "Stop, Willow. Don't you think this game is too much?" Everyone looked disappointed, muttering under their breath, and one of Willow's friends teased, "Willow, your George has quite the temper." Willow's face immediately darkened, and she began tapping the board with irritation. "So what? There's a board in between. It's not like we're really kissing. Can't you stop killing the fun?" I felt a pang in my heart. In our 3 years together, she had never cared about my feelings. I had told her many times not to invite Makoto, yet she still ignored me and invited him to celebrate. "Don't be so petty. I'm over him," she said. "Besides, everyone here is a mutual friend, and he just went through a breakup. It's just to help him relax." Yeah, all our old friends were here, and I was the only outsider. I was always jealous of Makoto, and every time I caused a scene in front of everyone, Willow's friends started to dislike me. Watching the two of them, so close and carefree, I suddenly felt exhausted. "Willow, my stomach hurts," I said. In the middle of this standoff, Makoto clutched his stomach in pain. Willow, looking both worried and anxious, said, "I'll go buy you some medicine now." But someone stopped her. "Willow, the game's not over yet. Are you trying to skip out on drinking? What do we do then? Should we wait until I get back?" Makoto, pale-faced, forced a smile and asked, "Wang, could you do me a favor and grab the medicine from the pharmacy around the corner?" "Makoto, when did my boyfriend become someone for you to order around?" Willow snapped, sounding annoyed but acting obedient nonetheless. "George, could you please help Makoto get his medicine? He usually takes this brand for his stomach. It works really well." She handed me her phone, showing me a picture. I recognized that medicine immediately. Once, Makoto had posted on social media about Willow taking care of him, and that exact medicine had been in the picture. In a fit of jealousy, I had thrown all the same medicine in our house away, only for Willow to call me crazy. Seeing that I wasn't budging, she looked a bit embarrassed. "Honey, could you do me a favor as a birthday present? I'll reward you tonight," she whispered sweetly, trying to coax me. Here we go again. She was dangling a carrot in front of me, trying to trick me into doing what she wanted. In the past, I would have eagerly agreed, only to be pushed away with excuses when it was time to claim my reward. Now, all I wanted was to escape this suffocating place. "Okay," I said, standing up and leaving the room. As I reached the pharmacy, Makoto sent me a message. "Wang, the punishment game with Willow isn't over yet. Hope you can forgive me for what's coming." I ignored him and hurried back to the room. As I opened the door, I saw them with their lips pressed together, separated only by the board. As everyone cheered and counted down, 10, 9, 8, my heart sank to the bottom. Willow had ultimately let me down. As I entered, Makoto flinched, and the board slipped from their mouths. Willow, caught off guard, fell forward and planted her lips squarely on Makoto's. There they were, kissing in front of everyone. Willow quickly pulled back, screaming in shock as she frantically wiped her lips. Makoto, looking nervous, turned to me and said, "It was an accident. My fault." "Wang, you don't mind, right?" Willow, scrubbing her lips until they were red, added nervously, "Honey, it was just an accident. Don't be mad." I calmly sat down, crossed my legs, and smiled. "No, it's fine. Go ahead." Everyone was stunned. In the past, I would have flipped the table and caused a scene. Willow would have immediately stepped in to criticize me. "It was just a joke. Why are you overreacting? You're embarrassing us." And Makoto would have played the good guy. "Come on, Wang. He's just too protective of you. Listen to me. Don't argue." Then Willow would scold me. "Look how considerate he is. Can't you be more mature?" I was always made out to be the bad guy, while Makoto always came out looking good. Today, I didn't cause a scene. I silently took a sip of tea. Willow looked uneasy. She came over to me, asking if I wasn't feeling well. "Where's the medicine?" "I didn't buy it. He seems fine, able to play games." "I don't think he needs it," I said flatly. Willow's face flashed with anger. This was the first time I hadn't met her demands. "Let's keep playing." She glared at me before turning to Makoto to urge him on. Makoto glanced at me, then smiled and suggested, "Maybe we should stop." I waved dismissively. "No need to worry about me. You two go ahead." Everyone cheered, praising how understanding I was. Willow's face, however, grew darker. For the rest of the games, Willow was even more enthusiastic in interacting with Makoto, sharing a finger biscuit, pinching each other's noses, and finally, they even toasted together with crossed arms. I wasn't angry at all. In fact, I felt sleepy. It was late, and all I wanted was to go home and sleep. Everyone had a great time, but Willow's face didn't look so good. I checked my watch. It was already 11:30. "How about we call it a night? I want to go home and rest," I said. Everyone was surprised, and Willow's face showed a fleeting trace of relief, though it quickly disappeared, replaced by her usual frown. We were all having fun, and we were planning to head to a bar to keep the party going. "Don't spoil the mood." I was confused and shook my head. I'm not spoiling the mood. You guys can go ahead. I'm just really tired." Makoto, looking guilty, said, "Wang, are you mad at me again?" "I'm sorry. I admit I went a bit too far with Willow today, but we're just friends." Willow stepped in front of him with a cold face. "There's no need to apologize. He's just having one of his old episodes again." I yawned, tears welling up from exhaustion. "I'm really not mad. How about this? You guys go to the bar, and I'll cover the tab." "Deal." Willow saw my tears and seemed momentarily pleased, but when she understood what I was saying, her face darkened instantly. I didn't bother arguing anymore. I threw down a card and walked out. Once I got in my car, I called my boss. "Mr. Su, I'm willing to relocate to City C as soon as possible. You finally made up your mind. Don't worry, the company will take care of you." He had been trying to convince me for a long time, saying young people should prioritize their careers, but I had hesitated because of Willow. Thankfully, her constant antics had cured me of my love-struck foolishness. When I got home, I went straight to bed. In the middle of the night, a loud bang jolted me awake, as if someone had kicked the door. The room light suddenly blazed on, blinding me. Willow stood leaning against the doorframe, with Makoto by her side. "Sorry for disturbing you so late, Wang," Makoto said apologetically. "Willow drank too much, and I didn't feel comfortable letting her go home alone, so I brought her here." Suppressing my irritation at being woken up, I coldly replied, "All right, take her to the guest room to sleep." Just as I was about to go back to sleep, Willow angrily shoved Makoto aside and yanked the covers off me. "George, you're not even a little worried about me, not even one call. You used to always pick me up." Chapter 2. Indeed, in the past, no matter who she was out with, I would always call to check on her safety. If it got too late, I would personally drive to pick her up. But all it ever got me was ridicule from her friends and scolding from her. They laughed at me for being overly attached, and teased that Willow was strict with her husband. Willow would always lash out at me to save face. "George, I'm an adult. I have the right to my freedom. Stop controlling me and get lost." Thinking of this, I pulled the blanket back over myself. "You always said I was too controlling. Now that I'm giving you freedom, isn't that what you wanted?" She was rendered speechless, her face flushing red. "I'm feeling dizzy. Could you make me some hangover soup?" she asked, trying to soften her tone. In the past, every time she drank, I would make her that soup, but now, I didn't feel like it anymore. "The ingredients are in the kitchen. If you want it, make it yourself. I have work tomorrow. I'm going to sleep." I got up, pushed both of them out of the room, and locked the door. Willow started banging on the door, shouting, "George, are you giving me attitude now?" Before, I would have done all these things without her needing to ask. Now, even when she humbled herself to ask sweetly in front of Makoto, I felt nothing. But, really, what did it matter to me? I put on my noise-canceling earplugs and fell into a deep sleep. It was the best sleep I'd had in a long time, without any dreams. The next morning, I walked out to find Willow in an apron, glaring at me with resentment. "I thought you were going to sleep all day. Go make some porridge." Makoto says his stomach hurts. The smell of burnt food came from the kitchen. She had tried cooking for Makoto and failed miserably. "Why should I?" I said with a cold laugh, making Willow look up in shock. "He's your ex-boyfriend, not mine." Makoto, clutching his stomach from the couch, weakly chimed in, "Willow, you two don't need to fight because of me. I'll leave now." I laughed. "If you were truly considerate, you would have left last night." "George, my friend sent me home late, and I had been drinking. What's wrong with letting him crash on the couch?" Willow screamed. Nothing. I wouldn't even mind if you slept next to him," I said nonchalantly as I headed to the bathroom. The sound of things being thrown and a door slamming followed. When I came out, they were both gone, and the kitchen was a mess, with broken pieces of a burnt pot scattered on the floor. I didn't bother cleaning it up. I went straight to work. For the next 3 days, Willow didn't come home. I saw her post on social media. In the photo, she was wearing a loose men's shirt, holding up a pan-fried bun with chopsticks, and captioned, You really know me well. You know I love pan-fried buns. Makoto didn't appear in the picture, but I could see his hand, wearing a watch. It was the same watch Willow had given me for our anniversary last year. At the time, I had been overjoyed, only to later find out Makoto had the exact same one. Chapter 3. From that day on, I threw the watch into a drawer and never wore it again. Every time Willow and I fought, she would run to Makoto and post passive-aggressive updates on social media for my eyes only. Like today. In the past, I would have panicked, calling her over and over, begging her to come home. Even when it was her fault, I would let it go, and she would return like a haughty princess, casually asking, "Have you learned your lesson?" But now, I didn't care anymore. I liked her post and then knocked on my boss's office door. "Boss, when can I leave?" "The sooner, the better." He smiled approvingly. "I've already told Luis to make arrangements. It's rare to see you finally come around. Don't worry, your salary will double when you get there." When my coworkers heard I was moving to City C, they congratulated me, and someone asked, "What about your girlfriend?" I smiled and said, "We've broken up. We weren't right for each other." They nodded knowingly. Over the next week, I was busy handing over my work until I saw Makoto's latest post on social media. I said I wanted to see the ocean tomorrow, and you're taking me at dawn. You're the best. The picture was of two figures sitting on the beach, facing the sea in peaceful tranquility. Willow commented, "Of course, I'm your ever-reliable best friend who never lets you down." I liked the post and commented, "Wishing you both everlasting love." The post was quickly deleted, and shortly after, Willow called me. I didn't pick up and put my phone on silent. After working late until 7 p.m., I checked my phone to find dozens of missed calls and messages. Willow's messages read, "Don't get the wrong idea. It wasn't just the two of us at the beach. A whole group of us went, and we stayed in separate rooms. I've been sleeping in a different room at Makoto's house these past few days. The other day, I didn't have clothes, so I borrowed his shirt because I got caught in the rain. I've cooked dinner at home. I'll come pick you up tonight." I was surprised. This was the first time she had ever tried to explain herself. In the past, when I saw posts like this, I would lose my temper and argue, but she wouldn't even bother explaining. She'd just say, "Only insecure people think so negatively. We're just good friends." Now that I didn't care anymore and genuinely wished them well, she started explaining and even tried to make peace. In all 3 years together, she had never cooked for me. Willow always said she wanted to be spoiled like a princess forever, and princesses don't cook. Yet every time Makoto had a stomachache, she would rush over to cook him a full meal. If I ever got upset, she would coldly say, "Makoto is sick. He can't keep eating takeout. What's wrong with me cooking for him?" And if I protested, she would add, "If you feel it's unfair, stop cooking. I can eat takeout forever." I would always give in because I didn't want her eating unhealthy food. Looking back, I can't believe how foolishly in love I was. Thankfully, I've finally woken up. "Okay," I replied to her last message. I figured it was time to tell her in person that it was over. When I got downstairs, Willow was waiting by the car, waving at me. Before I could walk over, she ran up to me, linking her arm with mine. "Working overtime is tough. I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs and braised shrimp." For a moment, I was shocked. Was this really Willow? She had actually cooked for me and even came to pick me up from work. "George, why have you been ignoring me for so long?" Willow's eyes reddened as she spoke, clearly hurt. I gently pulled my arm free, pausing for a moment before replying. "Because you always complained that I was too controlling, that you didn't have enough freedom. I thought giving you more space was what you wanted." She bit her lip, looking guilty. "I only just realized over the past few days that I've gotten used to you caring for me, to having you around. Even though I was with them, I kept thinking about you. That's why I came back early. Cooking is really tiring, but I'll do it more often for you." "Okay." I stayed silent, meeting her hopeful gaze. "In the future, we won't have that chance," I finally said. Her expression changed. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, her phone rang. "Willow, I'm at the airport, and my stomach hurts." It was Makoto again. Willow reacted instinctively, tensing up with worry. "Makoto, ask someone there for some hot water." "I'll be right there." She hung up and looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry. Makoto isn't feeling well. I need to go pick him up." I nodded. "I understand. Go ahead." I left some stomach medicine and a thermos in the car. "You can go to my office and fill it with hot water. There might not be any pharmacies near the airport," I added, smiling as I gave her detailed instructions for taking care of a sick person. "Remember, people with stomach issues shouldn't just drink porridge. Toast is actually better for them." Willow's eyes reddened. "George, why are you suddenly saying all this?" I smiled. "Because you've gotten so used to me taking care of you. I'm guessing you wouldn't know how to care for someone else. Go on. Makoto's waiting for you at the airport." She looked panicked, clutching my hand desperately like a madwoman. "George, are you not jealous at all?" I sighed. But before I could respond, my coworker approached us. "Wang, I've been looking everywhere for you." "Oh, is this your girlfriend?" he asked, glancing at Willow with a friendly smile. Nice to meet you, ma'am. Wang here told us you two had broken up, but clearly that's not true. You're such a supportive girlfriend. Letting him move to City C for work, impressive. My coworker's bluntness hit Willow like a freight train. Her expression changed instantly. What did you say? George is moving to City C. Her body trembled as her nails dug deep into my arm, leaving marks. I frowned and pulled my arm free, speaking calmly. Yes, I made the decision 2 weeks ago, on your birthday. Let's break up. Willow, you don't mean that, do you? Honey, she asked, using a term of endearment she rarely ever called me in the 3 years we were together. Chapter 4. In the past, I used to cling to her, asking her to call me husband, but she always said it felt awkward and refused. Now, when she finally called me that, I didn't want to hear it anymore. It's not just words of anger. Willow, I'm serious. I looked at her tear-filled eyes, my voice calm. I'm leaving this city soon, starting a new life elsewhere. Take care of yourself from now on. She bit her lip so hard that blood started trickling down. My coworker finally sensed the awkwardness and quickly excused himself, slipping away unnoticed. I frowned, turned away from her, and hailed a cab to go home and pack my things I had been organizing over the past few days. Willow followed me home, storming in to block my way. I've already swallowed my pride and come back to cook for you. What more do you want? I admit I went too far before, but I've been making it up to you. Even ditching my friends for you. Isn't that enough? Throwing a tantrum has its limits, and now you're pulling this act just to fool me. Her bloodshot eyes glared at me, convinced I was just acting out of spite. I'm giving you one last chance. As long as you don't say the words break up, I'll promise not to see Makoto again. I chuckled and shook my head. It's too late for that. Willow, I don't love you anymore. Her face turned pale as she desperately searched my eyes for something, anything. I don't believe you. I won't agree to breaking up. Her phone rang again, and Makoto's weak voice came through. Willow, where are you? I feel awful. Please hurry. Makoto, I can't make it. You should ask the airport staff for help, or call an ambulance. Willow hung up the phone with a hard look on her face. I was surprised. This was the first time she had ever refused a request from Makoto. He's a grown man. He can take care of himself. I can't always be there for him, she explained to me. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. How ironic. In the past, during holidays or special occasions, whenever Makoto called, Willow would drop everything to go see him. Back then, she would scold me, saying, Makoto is all alone, and it's my responsibility as his friend to take care of him. Don't be so narrow-minded. He's in the past, and now we're just the best of friends. So, she knew all along that what she was doing wasn't right, but she kept gaslighting me into accepting it. Some kind of compliance test. How ridiculous. What are you laughing at? Willow looked at me, confused. I finally understand why Makoto's girlfriend left him. He deserved it. I sneered. He has an ex-girlfriend who doesn't know any boundaries, claiming to be his best friend and constantly by his side. What normal woman could tolerate that? George, how could you say that? Willow shrieked, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. I'm saying that both you and Makoto are pathetic, completely clueless about boundaries. You both deserve to be dumped. I said each word clearly, watching her stagger from the impact. You're insulting me. I didn't bother replying, simply grabbed my suitcase and walked out the door. Willow lunged at me, hugging me from behind. You're right. It's my fault. I'll change. Please, don't leave me. Honey, I know I was wrong. Her warm tears burned my back, but the feeling only disgusted me. You never cherish something until it's about to be lost. How sickening. Don't call me honey anymore. Let go, I said coldly. No, I won't let you go. Willow began to act like a spoiled child, refusing to let me leave. I pried her arms off and walked away without looking back. Behind me, I could hear her heart-wrenching screams. Sigh. I had hoped for an amicable breakup, but it didn't turn out that way. I guess I can't pretend to be a saint and just brush off the people who hurt me with a smile. With a heavy sigh, I dragged my suitcase back to the office. There was still a week before I had to leave the province, so I temporarily stayed at a hotel near the office. For the next 2 days, Willow kept bombarding me with calls and messages, apologies, reminiscing about the past, begging for forgiveness. I was so irritated that I blocked her on everything. Looking out at the rain outside my window, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Wang, there's someone downstairs asking for you. My coworker called me down, and I found Willow standing there, hugging herself. It was early autumn, and she had been caught in the rain, soaked through and shivering. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, and she hurried over to hug me. I stepped back a few paces and frowned. What are you doing here? Please, honey, stop being like this. Let's go home. Okay, she pleaded, her eyes red and puffy, likely from days of not sleeping well. I'm not going back. That house belongs to you. We've already broken up, so there's no reason for me to live there anymore. I replied indifferently. I know you're angry because I didn't know my boundaries before, And because I brought Makoto to my birthday party and played games with him. I've reflected on it deeply and promise I'll never do it again. I've already told Makoto not to contact me unless it's important. Please, forgive me, she begged, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I said nothing, and she continued. I've even thought over what you said when you insulted me that day. You were right. If you're still mad, you can keep yelling at me. This version of her felt both familiar and foreign, humble, cautious, desperate, and without dignity. It reminded me of my old self. I used to be that way, too, except back then. She was the one who made me feel so small. I have no connection to you anymore. I won't yell at you. I have work to do. Goodbye. I coldly brushed her off, turning to leave. Desperate, Willow pulled a small object from her pocket, wrapped in plastic. I know you left the house in a huff, and that's why you didn't take this charm with you. You once said you'd take it with you everywhere, just like you'd take me. George, could you really break your own promise? As I took the charm from her hand, memories came flooding back. Chapter 5. This charm was something Willow got for me when we first met. 3 years ago, I had just started working in the city, and one evening after work, I went out for dinner with colleagues. Suddenly, I heard a faint cry for help from a nearby table. Turning around, I saw a pure and beautiful girl being dragged out by her friends. That girl was Willow. Her face was flushed unnaturally, and the guys with her glared at me. We're friends. Mind your own business, they snapped. Even my colleagues urged me not to get involved, but I stood up anyway, acting like a fool. She's calling for help. I have reason to believe you're trying to kidnap her. If you don't let her go, I'll call the police. It was already late, and there weren't many people left at the barbecue stand. The leader of the group, a guy with bleached hair, slapped me across the face. You little punk, you think you can threaten me? That night, I got beaten up by several of them until my colleagues called the police. At the station, I found out that Willow didn't actually know those guys. She had been heartbroken and went out drinking by herself, but suddenly started feeling dizzy, and those guys took advantage of the situation. The police warned her, "Young lady, don't go drinking alone again. You could have been drugged." The officers told me I had saved her from something terrible, as those thugs had a notorious reputation and had caused trouble before. They knew how to fight just enough to hurt me without leaving any serious injuries. Willow cried and thanked me for saving her, promising to take care of my wounds until I healed. That's how we met. Afterward, she went to a temple and got me a charm, telling me to keep it on me for protection. When we got together, I cherished that charm, always keeping it close to me. Carrying this is like carrying you. It protects me, and I'll protect you for life. Okay, I once vowed to her, but after deciding to break up, I no longer wanted to carry it. Willow, I wasn't the one who broke the promise. I sighed, reminding her. You were the one who asked to be with me in the first place. You said you liked me because I made you feel safe, but later on, you found me annoying, and you deliberately avoided me to spend time with Makoto instead. You're the one who wore down my love, little by little. You can't blame anyone else. Willow bit her lip so hard her whole body trembled. Before I could say anything more, her eyes rolled back, and she fainted on the ground. I had no choice but to carry her to the couch in the lobby and borrow a thermometer from the front desk. As I suspected, she had a high fever. Completely drenched, she curled up in her sleep, her face twisted in pain. It struck me then that, in the past, she never had to get caught in the rain. Whenever it rained, no matter where she was, I would call her immediately to ask if she needed an umbrella or a ride home. But she always responded with cold indifference. I'm an adult. I know how to avoid the rain. If I don't have an umbrella, I can buy one. Can you stop bothering me? My endless care and protection were only met with her irritation and contempt. George, please don't leave me, she murmured after taking some medicine. Her eyes fluttered open, full of helplessness and pleading. I shook my head slowly. I've already called your friends to come pick you up. I have something to do, so I won't be staying. Willow grabbed my sleeve, tears pouring from her eyes. In the past, I couldn't stand to see her shed even a single tear. It would break my heart. But now, I felt nothing. Wang, there you are. We've been looking all over for you. Come on. The boss and everyone else have already left for the restaurant. They're waiting for the guest of honor, you. My coworker came to get me, just as Makoto arrived. Willow, are you okay? He rushed to the couch, reaching out to feel her forehead. I stood up and walked away. Behind me, I could hear Willow's heart-wrenching cries, followed by her yelling something at Makoto. None of it mattered to me anymore. A week later, I finally flew to City C. The colleagues there were friendly, and work became even busier. Yet, despite everything, Willow still hadn't given up. She sent me messages every day, trying to get my attention. I tried making your favorite sweet and sour pork. It's a bit ugly, but it tastes pretty good. I had another nightmare without you here. I keep having bad dreams. It's raining again today, but I've gotten used to carrying an umbrella in my bag, just in case. After all, you won't be there to pick me up anymore. A pigeon fell off the balcony. I bandaged its wing. It's so pitiful. George, I miss you so much. She went through countless numbers to send me these messages over the span of 2 months. In the past, I was the one sharing every little thing with her. Just like that, I remembered the time I found a stray kitten on the street, took a picture, and sent it to her. This poor thing, can I bring it home? It took her a long time to reply. I'm allergic to pet hair. We can't have it. At that moment, I realized she hadn't even bothered to look at the picture. My disappointment grew over time, until eventually, I became used to it. After all, I loved her more, so I was willing to lower myself. But now that I no longer loved her, she had only just started trying to share things with me. Too little, too late. Delayed affection is worth less than nothing. Delayed sharing is just a nuisance. During this time, Makoto had stopped posting anything about Willow. He used to post about her at least once or twice a week, whether they were out having fun or she was taking care of him, cooking and bringing him medicine. Chapter 6. Now, Makoto's social media is filled with melancholic posts, much like the overly dramatic musings of a teenage boy. If this had been before, Willow would probably have shared in his sadness. But now, watching him act like this, I find it amusing, like watching a clown perform. During my 6 months in City C, Willow continued sharing her life with me relentlessly. I no longer bothered blocking her, although I had no idea where she got so many new accounts. After completing my first project, my boss invited me back to celebrate. I made plans with a colleague to pick me up from the airport. However, upon landing, I saw Willow waiting there from a distance. As soon as she spotted me, her eyes lit up with excitement. My colleague texted me, "Sorry, Wang." She was too persistent. "I'll make it up with 3 drinks later." Willow approached, looking thinner and more worn than I remembered. "George, can't we even stay friends after the breakup? I had to beg your colleague to tell me you were coming back today." I didn't know how to respond. Seeing the hint of grievance on her face, she smiled, grabbed my luggage, and said, "Come on, I'll drive you to the restaurant." Women really are mysterious creatures. Despite our breakup and my coldness for the past 6 months, she clung to me like glue, unwilling to sever the connection. I instinctively went to sit in the back seat, but she pulled me into the front passenger seat instead. In the past, the front seat had always been reserved for Makoto. Even when the 3 of us were together, I had always been relegated to the back. "What are you looking for?" Willow asked. Noticing me glance at the center console, I remembered that spot used to be filled with Makoto's things, breath freshener, cologne samples, and men's hand cream. Once, I got so angry about those items that I tried to throw them out, but Willow had mocked me, saying I was petty and that I was trying to keep others from living their best lives just because I wasn't as refined as them. "Those are just things. How do they affect you?" Now, all those things were gone, likely thrown away. So, she did understand that they had significance, that they weren't just harmless objects. "Nothing," I replied. As the car crawled through traffic, Willow turned to me when we hit a red light. "I'm sorry. I didn't have good boundaries back then. I thought it didn't matter who sat in the front or who left things there. But now, I get how you must have felt." I stayed silent. As we moved forward in stop-and-go traffic, my post-flight nausea worsened. I brought some motion sickness pills, just in case. She handed me a bottle, then opened a thermos from the cup holder. "It's chilly now. Drink some hot water." It was the same thermos I had told her to give Makoto. That touched something in me. If this had been in the past, I would have been overjoyed just to have her come pick me up, let alone be so thoughtful. But back then, she would have hung up impatiently, telling me she was too busy, and that I should take a cab home. As for motion sickness pills, I'd only ever seen her prepare them for Makoto, even though I suffered from motion sickness, too. On that winding mountain road trip, Willow had given the only pill to Makoto, saying, "Makoto's stomach isn't good. If he throws up, it'll be really bad for him. You can hold on a bit longer." Right. I didn't even know you get car sick. I had clung to the side of a tree, vomiting bitter bile as the stomach acid burned my throat. But Willow had known about my motion sickness. She just hadn't cared. I remembered when we first started dating. I went with her to the amusement park and threw up terribly after riding the pirate ship. She had been so concerned back then. "Why didn't you tell me you get motion sickness?" "Silly. I wouldn't have forced you to ride it." I had laughed it off, telling her I had taken medicine beforehand but miscalculated the dosage. She had cried, hugging me and saying, "George, you're so good to me." But later, after Makoto appeared, she gradually forgot these things. Now, after our breakup, it seemed she had remembered them again. When we arrived at the restaurant, I hesitated. She smiled at me and said, "Go ahead. Don't drink too much." I nodded and went inside. By the time the dinner ended, it was already 11:30 p.m. Stepping out, I was surprised to find Willow still waiting by the roadside. When she saw me, she got out of the car and handed me a hangover remedy. "Drink this. It'll help you feel better." I was puzzled by her change. Why had she become like this? It was as if we had never broken up, only that our roles had been reversed. Now, she was the one being clingy and attentive. "Willow, you don't need to do this. We're already," I started, but she cut me off before I could say broken up. Can't I just do this as a friend? Her eyes were red, her nose pink, and she sneezed. She had probably been sitting in the cold car all evening, unable to start the engine and stay warm. George, I never knew how hard it was to wait until now. Once inside the car, she looked at me with sad, pleading eyes. Yes, I remembered how I used to wait for her all the time, like the time it snowed, and she dragged me to karaoke with her friends. They had all egged her and Makoto on to sing a duet. I couldn't stand the atmosphere and went outside for some air. I sat outside for half an hour, but she never came to check on me. Out of stubbornness, I stayed outside for another hour. It wasn't until Willow came out to use the bathroom that she saw me sitting there like an idiot. I had been waiting for almost 2 hours. The wind that night was freezing, and the snow had soaked my clothes. I caught a fever. Are you stupid? Why didn't you say something? Serves you right for getting sick, she had scolded, showing no concern, only irritation. I'm sorry, I was so immature back then, letting you sit out in the cold and watch the snow like that, Willow said softly now, her apology finally circling back to hit her. It's fine, it's all in the past. I didn't ask you to wait for me today, so don't blame me if you get sick. My tone was calm, but she froze at my words. All I had done was return the words she had once thrown at me. The difference was that back then, I would have been soothed by her simple apology. Now, it was impossible. We drove in silence. Willow's eyes were red, and she kept glancing at me. When we reached the hotel parking lot, her phone rang. Willow, I miss you. Can you come see me? It was Makoto. Of course. Willow furrowed her brow, about to respond when she sneezed again. You're sick. Where are you? I'll bring you some medicine, she said. I opened the car door, laughing quietly to myself. Seems like you're not lacking in people who care about you. I'll get off here. From the other end of the phone, Makoto had clearly heard my voice and shouted. Of course, you don't care about Willow, but I do. You should stay away from her and stop making her miserable. I had nothing left to say, so I grabbed my suitcase and left. No matter how much Willow called after me, I didn't look back. Her voice faded into the wind. That night, Makoto smugly posted on social media. Longing does get a response, you finally came to see me. I chuckled to myself and tossed my phone aside before heading to the bathroom. When I came back out, I had a few missed calls. I only went to see Makoto to make things clear. I told him I don't want to be friends anymore. From now on, we're done. Don't misunderstand. His post was just him being presumptuous. I made him delete it. Sure enough, Makoto's post had already disappeared, but I could only laugh. In the past, every time Makoto dragged Willow away from me, he would post about how their friendship was worth celebrating. No matter how upset I got, Willow would coldly tell me, we're just friends. Why do you care so much about these trivial things? What? Am I supposed to control what my friends post? Don't be ridiculous. Her scolding words were still fresh in my memory, but now she seemed to understand. It was these so-called trivial things that had slowly eroded my love for her. Your friend can post whatever he wants. Freedom of speech. Freedom of choice. I replied with just that one sentence. Chapter 7. Like a boomerang striking her right between the eyes, Willow finally broke down. She sent me voice messages, crying. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong now. When he tried to drive a wedge between us, I finally felt the pain you must have felt back then. It's my fault. I didn't stop him when I should have. Instead, I fueled his arrogance, belittled and criticized you. I was the one who pushed you away. I'm so sorry, George. Listening to her tearful voice, I felt nothing. If she had realized this earlier, maybe things would have been different. But now, it didn't matter anymore. I turned off my phone, ignored her, and slept soundly through the night. The next morning, I packed my bags and went down to the hotel lobby. It was already 10 a.m. As I pulled out my phone to call a cab, I heard Willow's voice. I'll take you to the airport. She was curled up on the lobby sofa, dark circles under her eyes even more prominent. I realized she must have returned after cutting ties with Makoto and waited for me all night. There's no need. You didn't rest, so you shouldn't drive, I said calmly, dragging my suitcase toward the exit. Willow rushed after me, blocking my path, her eyes red and swollen. It was on my birthday, wasn't it? I didn't quite understand what she meant. She struggled to speak, her voice hoarse. That day, I ignored all your objections and insisted on inviting Makoto to the party. Then, during the games, I intentionally got too close to him to provoke you. But you didn't get angry anymore. You even encouraged me to stay with them while you left alone. Was that when you started to give up on me? I shook my head. No, that was just the last straw. Her face crumpled, and tears began to flow. I know I did so many things wrong before. Over the past 6 months, I've reflected on everything. I think about it, and I want to slap myself. It was my fault. I took advantage of your love, thinking you'd never leave me. So I kept testing your limits. I just wanted to see how much you cared. To hear you say you loved me. She choked on her sobs, her words barely intelligible, but I almost forgot. People's hearts grow cold. It's my fault. Please, Forgive me. Give me another chance. I've already cut ties with all those friends. I'll change. I'll be the girlfriend you've always wanted. I'll make you breakfast. Go everywhere with you. Take care of your health. I won't miss any more anniversaries. And I'll never give someone else the same gifts I give you. From now on, you'll be my only one. Please? I looked at her but didn't say anything. She grew desperate. I'll do all of it. I swear. I've already deleted those people and told them not to contact me. Please believe me. I sighed and smiled softly. So you see, you knew all along what you were doing wrong, but you still did it. Every time I got angry and argued, you never reflected on it. Instead, you turned it around on me, accusing me of being the problem. Like you said, you were confident in my love for you. You thought I'd never leave, that I'd stick to you like a desperate fool. You took my love and smothered it. It's over, Willow. Breaking up is the best outcome for both of us. No, I still love you, George. I still love you. Willow cried out in panic, no longer caring about her dignity. But, Willow, I don't love you anymore. I'm someone who deserves someone better, someone who'll stand by me through thick and thin, who won't expect me to carry the entire burden. That's the kind of person I'll love. Willow collapsed, clutching her head and sobbing uncontrollably, struggling to catch her breath. Goodbye, Willow, I said, dragging my suitcase and walking away without looking back. Goodbye to the person I once loved with all my heart. When I can no longer remember why I was ever hurt, that's when I'll have truly forgotten you.